Hello children, this is your teacher MACKNEROE, and I hope that you all are doing fine there at home. This is the usual thing that I used to ask you, right? Yep, I'll have to. Why? Because I don't know, we have not met for quite a long time. So we believe that you all are doing great over there back home. Okay, today I'm going to take up the poem which is called A Legend of the Northland of class 9, and it has been taken from your book Beehive. Okay, this poem is a beautiful work of Phoebe Cary. Is actually the name of the poet of this poem called A Legend of the Northland. Okay, let me just give you some introduction to the poem. A Legend of the Northland is a ballad. What is it? A ballad. And what do you mean by ballad? Ballad. Okay, ballad is actually in such a way that you will be getting to know that there's some story in it. Definitely all the poems are having stories, right? So this is a kind of a rhyming one which will make you understand, by the way. Okay, a ballad is a poem narrating a story in short stanzas. A ballad is such kind of poem which tells a story in short stanzas, and in the poem all the stanzas comprise 4 lines. Yep, that it is. The poem which are actually comprised of 4 lines, those are called ballad. They are, sometimes romantic, and sometimes they'll be like definitely in rhymes and all. In total there are 16 stanzas in this poem. Ballads are a part of folk culture or popular culture and are passed on orally from one generation to the next. Folk culture is a story of any area and is known as ballad. Folk culture comprises of traditional stories which are passed on from one generation to the next generation. Okay, I hope that is clear to you. Those kinds of poems which are passed to the next generation, and they are beautifully done by the poets, and they are in 4 lines. They will be in 4 lines so that you will get some ideas about those stories, those narrating lines. If we move further, the story is of the Northland area. You know where is Northland area? It's actually the North Pole. The area which is near the North Pole, you would say, around the North Pole. This exact place is not specified anywhere, so that's why we cannot completely tell where this location is, but this is the area where the North Pole is nearby. Okay, and here the legend means a historical story, okay, one which is very old and has been passed on from generation to the next generation. So this is how it is. So today it's going to be the part 1, because it's a lengthy stanzas. As I told you already that there are 16 stanzas, right? There are 16 beautiful stanzas, a beautiful work of Phoebe Cary, and I will be actually telling you the 8 stanzas of this poem today, and in the part 2 the further stanzas of this poem I will resume. All right, so let's move to the first stanza of this poem. You are having the book Beehive. Come along with that. If you're right now watching me on TV, on this online class, take up your book and look for this poem named A Legend of the Northland. Okay, A Legend of the Northland by Phoebe Cary, and try to follow as I will be reading the stanzas and explain you as well. Fine. Moving to the first stanza of this poem. Away, away in the Northland, where the hours of the day are few, and the nights are so long in winter that they cannot sleep them through. Okay? Away, away in the Northland. That is actually because Northland is far away. Okay? It's a North Pole. And how is the climate of the North Pole? It's usually cold, right? It's pretty cold over there. where the hours of the day are few. Here, the poet has actually told something about the scenario of that area right now. It's completely cold, and first of all, the sun rays doesn't reach to that particular area because of the winter season has started. And here, the poet has emphasized the duration of the night, which is taking long, okay? And the nights are so long in winter. See, it's there in the stanza, the third line. And the nights are so long in winter that they cannot sleep them through. The nights are so long because it's usually dark, and here the days are less because of the situation, or because of the climatic situation over there at that moment, or you would say the climatic condition. And that is actually the usual climate. That is actually the climate of that area, North Pole. Fine? So here the poet is trying to tell us that the scenario of that North Pole, actually Northland, which is around North Pole, is completely different because of the severe cold. The sun's rays are not reaching. Just because of that, the days are short and the nights are long. Move on to the next stanza, stanza number 2, where they harness the swift reindeer to the sledges when it snows, and the children look like bears' cubs in their funny furry clothes. Okay, let me just tell you that who is they referred to there. They refers to those people who lives in that region, the region of Northland, which is around the North Pole. Okay, they is referred to them, and they is referred to the parents also who lives there in that region. What they usually do, you know, how they used to pull the sledges. The sledges are being pulled by the reindeer, and that is how they travel one place to another. That is how they do. Okay, so in such situation and in such kind of a climatic condition, the transportation for them is the reindeer. Okay, because the reindeer pull the sledges, and at that moment the children, they look a kind of bear cubs, because those children will be wearing those furry clothes, the white one, and they appear to be looks like those the young of those bears and all. Okay, so here the scenario is completely different because of the climate. Fine. Move on to the next stanza. They tell them a curious story. I don't believe this true, and yet you may learn a lesson if I tell you. Repeat. If I tell the tale to you. Okay, what they do at night, they don't have anything to do at night. So what they usually do, they narrate some story to the children. Fine. You must have seen such particular situation whenever the parents or some elderly people will be narrating some story, right? You will find such cases, you will find such things. Repeat. You will find such things in the villages where the elderly people will be narrating stories to the young people or the children. So here the older people or the elderly people, they narrate some stories which the poet is not able to believe that such things must have occurred, such incident must have occurred. Okay, so that's why the poet is saying that he cannot believe all those which have been narrated by the elderly people or the parents. Okay, here they, T-H-E-Y, they is referred to parents. And yet you may learn a lesson if I tell the tale to you. The third line of the stanza says that though those stories which sometimes are not being supposed to be, you know, believed by us, but in such a way they will be narrating them that you will have to believe them. Okay, So those things, those stories were narrated by those elderly people. Now let's hear one of the stories which has been narrated by the parents here. Okay, move on to the next stanza. Stanza number 4. Once, when the good Saint Peter lived in the world below and walked about it preaching, just as he did, you know. Saint Peter, one of the disciples of Jesus Christ. Okay, Saint Peter was out for preaching around the globe, around the world. Okay, and he walked everywhere. And what was the purpose? Just to preach about the God, about the Almighty, omnipotent. Okay, he was preaching the good word actually in the entire world. So that is the story about Saint Peter, one of the disciples of Jesus Christ. Okay, move on to the next stanza, stanza number 5. He came to the door of a cottage in traveling round the earth, where a little woman was making cakes and baking them on the hearth. When Peter was roaming about for preaching, he reached to many far places. He met many people. He preached to those people about the existence of God, the existence of the omnipotent. And on his journey, he reached to one particular place. He reached to one particular house. And then he knocked the door. When the door was opened, there was this woman inside this house. And when she opened it, she welcomed Peter, Saint Peter. And then when Peter sat there, Peter noticed that this woman was preparing cakes. She had a store, a cake store, by the way. Okay, and she was making those cakes. By seeing that, Saint Peter was hungry for quite a long time, as he has roamed the globe, right? He roamed the globe, he didn't eat anything. He didn't have proper food to eat, I would say. So just because of that, when he saw this woman made those cakes, his mouth watered. And then he asked to the woman, "Would you give me a piece of that?" Then that lady was actually little bit of selfish. Okay, in the next stanza we will be able to know that. Stanza number 6. And being faint with fasting, for the way was almost done, he asked her from her store of cakes to give him a single one. Okay, and as I told you that Peter was hungry for a long time, as he didn't bring any food, as he didn't take any food along with him. And that is why when he entered the house of this woman, he saw a woman preparing cakes, as that was the store of this woman. I'm repeating this so that you will be able to understand that what is the stanzas and the poems trying to convey to us. Okay, so here this woman was a bit of a selfish woman. She did not want to give a single piece of that cake to Saint Peter. That time when Peter just asked a piece from that particular cake, she refused to give. She just said that I'm going to give you, or I'm going to prepare another cake for you, because she was thinking that if she is going to give the entire cake, though Saint Peter was asking a piece of it, but again this woman was so miser that she did not want to give even a single piece of that. But since Saint Peter had traveled all over the globe, so she just thought Let me just give a small piece of that. But when she was trying to prepare a cake for Saint Peter, the smaller part you would say, so that it could be served to Saint Peter, when that lady, that woman, saw her cake while preparing it, she was thinking even the size of this cake is bigger. How selfish for that woman. She was thinking that the cake which she is preparing now for Saint Peter is again bigger in size. So she told Peter, Saint Peter, relax right now. I'm going to make you another one. Okay? Let's read the next stanza. So she made a very little cake, but as it baking lay, she looked at it and thought it seemed too large to give away. Okay? See, this is the situation right now. When she baked the cake, she was thinking that it's bigger in size. It's not even smaller. So what's the point of me giving to Saint Peter? I mean, that was the height of a misery. She didn't want to give. Okay? Usually we find people who just don't want to share anything. You will be seeing these people keeping whatever they just want to keep with them. They won't share. They won't do that at all. So in such case, what we have to do? We have to, avoid such people. I wouldn't say that you just have to avoid them. Just try not to go and ask them anything. As you know the result, they may not give you. And you may feel embarrassed if they don't give you. So you have to be careful with such people. So, again, when the cake was prepared, she looked at the cake and then she decided to again make another one which is smaller size than the previous one which she has prepared. Okay, moving to the next stanza. Therefore she needed another and still a smaller one. But it looked, when she turned it over, as large as the first had done. Okay? Whenever she is preparing that cake, it appears to be bigger in size to her. Though she is thinking that she is going to make a smaller piece of that or a smaller part of that cake, but it will be appearing to her as a bigger size. Eventually, I don't think so that she is going to provide or give any cake to Saint Peter. Okay, so this is the entire stanza number 1 to stanza number 8. Let me just come back with the part 2 and let's see that what happens to Saint Peter, whether Saint Peter is going to get this cake or not. Okay, let me just revise the whole thing. Let me just revise the whole story. Okay, here it's about the story of a Northland. Remember, whatever I'm teaching you right now, whatever I'm narrating to you, please listen to it carefully so that you will be able to answer those questions which are given to you at the end of this poem. Okay, that would be given to you in the part 2. Fine. Here we are talking about a place called Northland. Remember that, Northland. Northland is not a specific area. It's difficult to identify or locate this area, but if you have to find out, then you will have to go to North Pole. Okay, it's around somewhere the North Pole, the Northland. Okay, here the story is about Saint Peter. First, the poet has elaborated about the climatic condition of that region, that how is the climate and how those children are appearing. The poet is elaborating about the condition of that region and those people who live in that region. They are used to it, and what they use for transportation, repeat. And what they used for transporting? They used sledges which are being pulled by the reindeer. Okay? And those small children, what they do? They used to listen to some story which is usually narrated by the elderly people or the parents of that region. This is how they live. And here one story is being narrated by the parents. And what is the story? The story of Saint Peter, who has gone out for preaching. Preaching of what? Preaching of God's existence. Preaching of something good, really. Okay? And while on his journey, he met a woman who happened to make cakes, who was a cake maker. And when Peter went to her house, he knocked the door, she opened it. And when Peter got inside her house, he was welcomed with the he was welcomed with the smell of those cakes. Okay? And when he asked that lady, that woman, that if she could provide her a small piece of it, that woman did not want to give even a single piece of that or smaller piece of that, but somehow she thought that she would be making another cake which has to be given to Saint Peter. But whenever she did, that cake appeared to her bigger in size. So eventually she will be thinking that the size of that cake which has been prepared by her or made by her is actually bigger in size, so why should I give Saint Peter that bigger size of that cake? So this went on and on like that. Okay, I have left you with another 8 strangers. Let's hope that Saint Peter will get the piece of cake from that woman. So till then, hashtag stay safe, stay healthy, and Godspeed.